Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Research Podcast. Today we're embarking on, well, what I promise will be a truly mind-bending deep dive. We're looking into one of the most perplexing geopolitical events, really, of recent memory. The U.S. strike on Iran.
Huh?
It's a situation that has birthed this swirling chaos of conflicting narratives. The political aftermath is so complex, it feels like untangling a Gordian knot.
Yeah, completely.
And oddly, it's a scenario where somehow everyone involved is claiming victory. It's just an absolute maze of information, and nothing, it seems, is quite as it appears on the surface.
That's right. And our mission today is pretty clear, really.
Yeah.
We're here to cut through that profound noise. We want to meticulously untangle the threads of deception and help you, our listener, figure out what really happened.
Right.
Our insights are drawn directly from, well, a comprehensive stack of sources. We've received everything from leaked intelligence reports that offer a glimpse behind the curtain to detailed analyses from international newspapers that provide these, global perspectives. This deep dive isn't just about listing facts. It's about dissecting the hidden truths and helping you connect those crucial, often surprising dots.
And when we talk about sources for this deep dive, we're not pulling any punches. We've gone broad and deep here. We've got everything from the frontline reporting of CNN and the New York Times to the nuanced geopolitical insights from places like Haaretz, the Washington Post, the Jerusalem Post, Foreign Policy.
Right, a real range.
Yeah, and even specific granular details unearthed by investigative YouTube channels like Summary. It's a full spectrum of reporting and analytical perspectives, and believe me, it brings some truly surprising revelations to the surface, stuff that challenges almost every initial assumption.
Precisely. Our ultimate goal here is to dissect the public narrative, the story we're generally told versus the often hidden truths that lie beneath. We'll be meticulously examining the strategic plays made by all the key actors, delving into the, quite astonishing infighting that apparently erupted within U.S. intelligence agencies.
Which is fascinating in itself.
Absolutely. And identifying the unexpected winners and losers in a conflict where the truth, as you just said, is incredibly elusive. This deep dive is really tailor-made to help you gain knowledge quickly but thoroughly, to provide those aha moments you're looking for. Because the layers of this particular onion, well, they go very, very deep.
Okay, so let's unpack this. And we should start right at the top, I think, with the immediate aftermath of this strike and the very different ways it was presented to the world. President Trump, almost immediately after the operation, publicly declared the American strike on Iran's Fordow nuclear facility a resounding, unequivocal success.
Right away.
He was confident, almost triumphant, asserting that severe damage had been inflicted. He claimed it had completely incapacitated Iran's ability to produce a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, the language was very definitive.
He even went a step further, stating unequivocally that Iran couldn't even move its enriched uranium from Fordow, insisting it was all destroyed in the strike.
The sheer speed and, frankly, the absolute confidence with which these claims were delivered were immediately striking, weren't they?
They really were.
This wasn't just a quiet, formal statement. It was an active, forceful assertion of a dominant narrative. Reports indicated that Trump seemed to prioritize controlling this specific public story above, pretty much all else, even diverting attention from something as significant as a NATO summit to reiterate his points.
Yeah, I remember that.
This wasn't a cautious, measured assessment based on painstaking verification. It felt like an immediate, declarative presentation of a desired outcome, seemingly crafted for immediate public consumption and political impact. It really underscores the priority given to perception over, maybe the preliminary facts on the ground.
And what's truly incredible, almost unbelievable, is an anecdote that unfolded during this period, directly involving a CNN journalist, Natasha Bertrand.
Oh, right. That story.
According to sources like the Summary YouTube channel, Trump was reportedly personally tracking her for 3 consecutive days after her report broke.
3 days.
3 days of focused attention. Then, in an utterly unprecedented move, he publicly demanded via tweet that she be fired like a dog.
That phrase, yeah.
He accused her of writing fake news that, he claimed, directly affected the morale of U.S. pilots involved in the strike. I mean, can you imagine the commander-in-chief publicly calling for a journalist to be fired like that in such a demeaning way?
It was indeed extraordinary. A U.S. president publicly threatening a journalist's career and in such an aggressive, personal, and frankly derogatory way. It's far beyond typical political pushback.
Beyond.
What's truly illuminating here, I think, is the depth of the threat this specific report must have posed to the official narrative Trump was so diligently trying to establish. It strongly implies that Natasha Bertrand's reporting, which was reportedly based on leaked intelligence, struck a nerve so profoundly sensitive that it provoked this almost visceral, highly public attack from the highest office.
It had to have hit something raw.
Exactly. It suggests the information she reported was not only inconvenient, but potentially very damaging to the White House's chosen storyline of absolute, undisputed success. It really highlights the high stakes of this information war.
So, okay. On one side, you have this triumphant, definitive declaration from the president. But then, almost immediately, a powerful counter-narrative started to emerge.
Right.
A CNN report, the one Trump reacted so strongly to, quickly circulated widely and directly contradicted the president's claims. This report stated, in stark contrast, that the American strike had only caused moderate to weak damage to Iran's nuclear facilities.
A huge difference.
Massive, asserting it would set back their program by merely a few months, rather than annihilating it, as Trump had so confidently asserted.
And this is where the plot truly thickens, and it gets incredibly interesting, doesn't it?
Oh, it really does.
CNN's report wasn't just idle speculation or, typical media analysis. It was explicitly based on a leaked secret report from the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA.
The DIA itself, yeah.
This immediately raises a critically important question. Why would a major, influential U.S. intelligence agency like the DIA, tasked with providing objective assessments, directly contradict the president's public statements so quickly and so fundamentally?
It's baffling on the surface.
It wasn't a subtle difference in interpretation,
Right.
It was a fundamental disagreement on the efficacy and impact of a major military operation. It signaled an immediate and profound rift within the U.S. intelligence community itself.
Absolutely. And how did President Trump react to this very public and damaging leak from within his own intelligence apparatus?
Wow.
Well, in response, he reportedly took the drastic step of reducing the amount of intelligence shared with Congress.
Which is a huge move.
Huge. The clear implication, of course, was to prevent any future leaks that might continue to undermine his preferred narrative. It's a stunning move when you consider the traditional checks and balances, effectively limiting congressional oversight right at that moment.
Yeah, think about this. When a president curtails intelligence flow to Congress, especially right after a leak like that, it's not just some procedural maneuver. It's like a flashing red light.
Right.
It signals not only that the leaked intelligence likely holds water, but also that its truth poses a direct and immediate threat to the administration's public narrative. The very fact that the entire U.S. intelligence apparatus, or at least significant factions within it, seemed to mobilize to either refute or confirm a single CNN report based on a DIA assessment. It suggests that the report had a strong factual basis that the White House found deeply threatening.
Threatening to their story.
Exactly. Threatening to its public image and strategic goals. This isn't just about security protocols. It's about control. And it's a dangerous game for transparency and public trust in government information.
Okay, so that's the U.S. side, this internal conflict. Now let's shift our focus over to Iran's side of the story. Or perhaps their desperate attempt to craft one in the wake of the strike. After the American operation, Supreme Leader Khamenei, Iran's most powerful figure, mysteriously disappeared from public view for an entire week.
A whole week of silence. Very unusual.
Very. The New York Times even ran a prominent article with the headline, "Where is Supreme Leader Khamenei?" The uncertainty within Iran was palpable. Even prominent Iranian journalists who are usually incredibly close to Khamenei and his inner circle reportedly speculated openly about his whereabouts on public programs.
On public TV?
Yeah. And remarkably, his own archive office manager admitted to receiving public inquiries, asking quite simply, "Where is the Supreme Leader of Iran?" It created this massive vacuum of information and ignited widespread public unease and anxiety within the country.
The implications of such a sudden and prolonged disappearance, especially of a figure as central and, revered as Khamenei, are incredibly significant.
Yes.
This was particularly true given reports that some of Khamenei's closest commanders were reportedly killed during the very period of the strike. So this absence naturally fueled intense speculation. Was he injured in the attack? Was he perhaps even dead?
Those rumors were everywhere.
Right. The complete lack of official communication from such a pivotal figure, particularly during a time of national crisis and perceived foreign aggression, it just ignited widespread rumors and anxiety. It certainly suggested a major disruption to the regime's stability and chain of command, far beyond what any later official Iranian narrative would attempt to convey. A vacuum of power in such a tightly controlled state speaks volumes.
And then, after this deafening week of silence, Khamenei finally reappeared, delivering a public address.
Finally.
In that speech, he defiantly claimed that Iran's nuclear facilities were undamaged and that the American strike was, in his words, weak. What's truly ironic, almost a piece of political theater, is that he actually used statements from the American media, specifically referencing reports like the CNN one we just discussed, as confirmation that the strike was ineffective.
Wow, so using the U.S. media against the U.S. government's claims.
Exactly. He was essentially co-opting American news reports, reports that were causing political headaches in Washington, to bolster his own claims of Iranian resilience and victory.
This is where it becomes crucial for us to provide some context and understand the inherent complexities here.
Okay.
Accurately assessing damage to sophisticated underground nuclear facilities is an immensely difficult and time-consuming process. It takes not mere hours, but typically days or even weeks to properly verify the extent of such damage.
Right. It's not like looking at a building above ground.
Exactly. Think about the engineering challenges. Assessing the integrity of deeply buried concrete and steel structures, verifying the status of sensitive equipment, or detecting residual radiation from fissile materials. It's complicated stuff. Satellite images, for example, while useful for surface observations, are simply not definitive for underground targets.
They can only see the top.
Right. They can only show visible surface damage, which might be misleading or easily repaired, offering no real insight into the critical infrastructure below. So when we connect this to the bigger picture, it strongly suggests that both the rapid U.S. assertions of total destruction and Iran's equally swift claims of undamaged facilities were almost certainly politically motivated.
Both sides spinning.
Both sides were engaging in an intense information war, where immediate perception and narrative control were far more important than the meticulous, verifiable reality on the ground. It's a battle for headlines and public opinion, not necessarily a battle of unvarnished facts.
Which brings us back to the U.S. side, and one of the most astonishing aspects of this entire situation. The undeniable public conflict between U.S. intelligence agencies themselves.
Yeah, this part is wild.
While the Defense Intelligence Agency's report suggested minimal damage, implying a setback of only a few months, the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, officially came out and confirmed the complete, total destruction of all 3 Iranian nuclear facilities, specifically including Fordow.
Not just a different interpretation, a flat-out contradiction.
Right. This isn't just a difference in nuance or emphasis. It's a direct, fundamental contradiction from 2 of the most powerful and critical arms of U.S. intelligence. It's like an intelligence civil war playing out in public.
It is genuinely astonishing. And what's particularly striking here are the powerful and, frankly, chilling parallels it draws to the lead-up to the Iraq War.
Oh, interesting point. Yeah.
Many will recall how George W. Bush's administration was widely accused of pressuring the CIA to produce reports which many later believed were potentially false, exaggerated, or cherry-picked in order to justify the invasion of Iraq. Even when earlier intelligence suggested there were no weapons of mass destruction.
Right, the WMD intelligence debacle.
Exactly. So this current situation with the DIA and CIA raises an incredibly important and disturbing question.
Yeah.
Is U.S. intelligence being politicized again? Is it being used to serve the president's immediate political agenda rather than purely reporting objective, unvarnished facts? When agencies contradict each other so publicly and fundamentally on such a critical issue, the integrity and trustworthiness of the intelligence itself are inevitably called into question. It really undermines the very foundation of informed decision-making.
And further driving this point home, there's that upcoming congressional hearing we mentioned, a very high-profile event. Top officials, the Secretary of State, the CIA Director, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they're all expected to publicly confirm the destruction of Iran's nuclear facilities.
Right, a united front for the cameras.
It's a moment of televised affirmation, really, designed to solidify the official narrative.
Absolutely. And when high-level intelligence agencies quickly issue confirmations that perfectly align with the president's public narrative, especially when independent experts are simultaneously calling for more time to properly assess the situation on the ground, it's a very strong signal that political influence is heavily at play.
It has to be.
It suggests that the desire to uphold a specific public image or achieve a particular political goal is potentially overriding the meticulous, fact-based work that intelligence agencies are supposed to perform. This isn't just some internal bureaucratic skirmish. It sets a dangerous precedent for the integrity of intelligence reporting. where perceived political expediency could trump objective analysis.
And speaking of suppressing dissent, we have the unsettling case of Tulsi Gabbard.
Ah, yes, the National Intelligence Director at the time.
Right. At the time of these events, she was serving as a national intelligence director. And prior to the strike, she had publicly stated that Iran was not actively pursuing nuclear weapons.
Which directly contradicted the administration's line.
Completely. Reports indicate that she was subsequently isolated, effectively sidelined, and explicitly told not to attend that very congressional hearing we just mentioned.
Wow. Told not to come.
Yeah. And it's alleged that Trump created an environment where anyone who contradicted his narrative would be swiftly isolated, suggesting a deliberate effort to silence dissenting voices within his own administration. It's a pretty stark example of how, according to these reports, dissent was reportedly handled at the highest levels.
This specific instance with Tulsi Gabbard raises an incredibly important and troubling question about the true integrity of intelligence within such an administration when dissent is actively silenced.
How can you trust it?
Exactly. If intelligence professionals who hold different assessments or perspectives, even if those perspectives are based on sound analysis, are marginalized, prevented from participating in key forums, or face professional repercussions, how can the public, or even policymakers themselves, trust that the information they're receiving is truly objective and comprehensive?
It creates an echo chamber.
It really does. It essentially creates an echo chamber where only the politically convenient facts are allowed to surface, potentially leading to flawed policy decisions based on incomplete or manipulated intelligence. It highlights a perilous path away from transparent governance.
And to add yet another layer of complexity, almost an international twist to this intelligence narrative, Trump himself made a rather extraordinary claim during a televised interview. He stated that Mossad agents, that's Israel's premier intelligence agency, had personally confirmed to him that Fordow was indeed destroyed.
He brought Mossad into it publicly.
Publicly, he was explicitly citing foreign intelligence from a key ally to bolster his domestic position and validate his own claims.
What's particularly fascinating here is the potential for foreign intelligence to be used, or at least presented as such, to bolster a domestic political narrative.
Right, it serves a purpose.
It further blurs the already hazy lines between objective truth and political expediency. It raises an important and unsettling question for all of us as informed citizens. In an environment where U.S. agencies are seemingly at odds, openly contradicting each other, and then foreign intelligence is brought into the public debate by the president himself, seemingly as a definitive stamp of approval, can we truly trust any of the intelligence reports being released right now?
It makes you wonder.
The public has virtually no way of independently verifying such claims, making them highly susceptible to manipulation for political gain. It forces a fundamental skepticism about what constitutes reliable information.
Okay, so that covers the intelligence mess. Now, moving on to one of the most pressing questions that dominated American media right after the strike. A question that became kind of a rallying cry for journalists and analysts alike. Where is the enriched uranium?
Ah, yes. The uranium question. Crucial.
This was a critical point of contention, and its answer, or lack thereof, revealed even more layers of uncertainty.
Indeed, it became a central mystery. The Washington Post, referencing satellite images, reported seeing 16 trucks at the Fordow facility before the strike.
16 trucks, okay.
Their analysis suggested that Iran was potentially in the process of transferring its enriched uranium to secret, undisclosed locations, anticipating the American attack.
So they moved it beforehand.
That was the implication. This report suggested a shrewd and strategic move by Iran to protect its invaluable nuclear material from destruction, contradicting the narrative of total surprise and incapacitation.
But then U.S. intelligence agencies presented a direct and very firm counterargument.
They pushed back hard.
Unequivocally denied any uranium transfer. Their claim was that those 16 trucks couldn't possibly have safely transported such a large quantity of highly enriched uranium without causing a catastrophic nuclear incident due to radiation exposure.
A safety argument.
So their assertion was that the uranium remained at Fordow and was definitively destroyed in the strike. In fact, they even went so far as to claim that if the Iranians wanted to recover it, they would have to dig for years through the rubble.
Dig for years. Very evocative language.
It was a very definitive and starkly contrasting claim, painting a picture of absolute success.
Now, if we connect this to the broader picture for you, the listener, there's a significant, almost glaring paradox here. And it raises a very important question about the administration's true intentions and the actual outcome of the strike.
Which is?
If Iran's nuclear program is truly destroyed and all its enriched uranium is definitively gone and buried, as the U.S. administration claims, then why is the U.S. administration still so incredibly keen on negotiating a nuclear deal with Iran?
Good point. What's left to negotiate?
Exactly. The stated objective of a deal is to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. If that capability has been destroyed, what exactly are they negotiating for? This fundamental inconsistency creates deep skepticism about the core objective and the actual outcome of the strike.
It doesn't add up.
Right. The conflicting information on such a vital detail, the location and status of enriched uranium, makes it incredibly difficult for anyone to discern the true state of affairs and forces us to question the entire narrative being presented. It suggests that perhaps the reality on the ground isn't as clear-cut as the public pronouncements imply.
Okay, so we've established the conflicting narrative surrounding the strike itself and the profound disarray within the intelligence community.
A mess, basically.
Pretty much. But what about the bigger geopolitical game? Let's move into the strategic plays, the hidden agendas, and those unexpected beneficiaries that emerged from this chaos. And to kick this off, let's look at a rather provocative perspective from a Haaretz article. It argued that Donald Trump, despite all the intelligence chaos and internal contradictions we've discussed, is arguably the real winner of this entire conflict.
That's a truly fascinating take, isn't it? And the Haaretz reasoning behind it is quite compelling, even audacious. They contend that Trump managed to execute what they termed a surgical strike without incurring any of the catastrophic widespread consequences that have historically accompanied attacks on Iran.
Right. None of the usual fallout.
Exactly. Think back to previous escalations. Typically, an attack on Iran would trigger massive, immediate oil price hikes, potentially leading to the closure of the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz, a choke point for global oil shipments.
Which would cripple economies.
Absolutely. And almost certainly drawing European powers into a full-blown regional war. Yet in this instance, none of that happened. In fact, remarkably, oil prices actually dropped to $67 a barrel from nearly $80.
Dropped. That's counterintuitive.
Completely. An utterly unexpected and economically favorable outcome. This limited, contained impact, Haaretz argues, is what constitutes Trump's strategic, almost masterful victory. It defied all conventional expectations of escalation.
And the Haaretz article doesn't just stop there. It goes on to meticulously detail exactly how Trump could, and reportedly would, sell this perceived win to multiple distinct audiences.
Leveraging it.
Exactly, leveraging it for his own strategic and political benefit. First, to Israel, he could confidently claim he saved them from a prolonged, potentially unwinnable, and incredibly costly war against Iran's nuclear program. A war which Israel, by itself, reportedly lacked the heavy bombers and strategic depth to effectively prosecute and conclude.
So, I saved you from that.
Right. Second, to the Gulf states, he could powerfully demonstrate that he can strike Iran effectively and decisively without triggering major regional escalation, thereby reinforcing their trust and encouraging their continued alignment with U.S. interests. See? I can handle Iran without blowing up the region.
Keep him on side.
And third, to America itself, he could project an image of decisive action, showing he can achieve critical objectives without committing the nation to another costly, drawn-out war in the Middle East, a promise that resonates deeply with the Mexican public.
Strong action, no endless war.
It's a powerful, multifaceted narrative of decisive action without the typical painful consequences.
You've absolutely captured the essence of that strategic narrative. And here's where it gets really intriguing regarding the alleged demand Trump is now making of Netanyahu, according to some analyses, particularly those highlighted by the Summary YouTube channel.
Okay, what's the demand?
Following the strike, reports suggest Trump isn't just praising Netanyahu, which is a significant shift from their sometimes frosty prior relationship, but is also reportedly calling for the legal charges against Netanyahu in Israel to be dropped.
Dropped. Why?
The underlying belief here, reportedly, is that Netanyahu is now deeply, profoundly indebted to Trump for saving his political life. By decisively intervening in the Iran conflict, effectively handing Netanyahu a perceived victory that might have otherwise led to his political downfall if Israel had pursued the conflict alone and faced massive, unchecked escalation. Trump has allegedly created a powerful lever. This perceived intervention, these sources argue, has made Netanyahu politically beholden to the U.S. president.
Wow. So I saved you, now you owe me.
That seems to be the reported dynamic.
So the argument goes Trump is allegedly leveraging this perceived victory over Iran and Netanyahu's newfound indebtedness to demand that Netanyahu stop the war in Gaza.
Link the two issues.
Exactly. It's a bold strategic move aiming to tie a perceived military triumph to a grand diplomatic ambition. Trump's stated aspiration, as presented in these analyses, is to become nothing less than the first peacemaker in the Middle East.
Big ambitions.
Huge. He envisions extending the Abraham Accords, those historic normalization agreements, and achieving what he calls complete peace across the region. It's a highly personal and potentially legacy-defining strategic play.
Tying a perceived military victory to a comprehensive diplomatic overhaul in the Middle East.
Yeah. And this raises a truly fascinating and important question. Why might Netanyahu, despite his well-known reputation for being politically astute and at times incredibly obstinate, actually agree to such a demand?
Yeah, why would he?
The analysis suggests a shrewd political calculation on Netanyahu's part. The Iran conflict, surprisingly, appears to have significantly boosted Netanyahu's popularity within Israel.
Really, it helped him.
Made him feel, according to some assessments, like a hero or a victor who successfully navigated a perilous moment. This surge in public and political support could provide him with a unique and opportune window.
A window to do what?
To make a peace deal in Gaza without facing significant opposition or backlash from his far-right coalition partners and allies who might otherwise vociferously resist such a move.
So use the Iran win as political cover for a Gaza deal.
Precisely. It becomes a strategic opportunity for him to consolidate power, address another major regional conflict, and perhaps even reshape his political legacy on terms that might not have been politically feasible just a short while ago.
Interesting political maneuvering, if true.
Okay, that's a tremendous amount to unpack regarding the U.S. and Israeli strategic angles. But let's shift our focus now to Iran, because the revelations here concerning Israel's deep infiltration of Iranian territory are equally staggering, if not more so.
Right, the stuff about Israeli forces inside Iran.
Yeah. We have Israeli Defense Minister Eyal Zamil explicitly stating that Commandos, their special forces, were operating inside Iran, including right in Tehran during the conflict.
Not just spies. Actual soldiers?
Exactly. This isn't just about intelligence cells or distant surveillance. He's talking about actual physical military forces operating covertly within Iranian sovereign territory.
The implications of this revelation are profound indeed. This isn't merely espionage or intelligence gathering through traditional means. It means Israel had uniformed military forces conducting physical operational missions deep within Iran.
That's a massive escalation, covertly.
It suggests a far deeper level of infiltration and operational capability than previously imagined, indicating a severe and systemic vulnerability for Iran's security apparatus. Their military presence inside Iran could have been for a variety of highly sensitive and disruptive purposes, perhaps building clandestine factories or workshops for drone production, establishing covert cells to monitor and even target key Iranian leaders.
Targeting leaders.
Or deploying special forces for highly specific operations against critical infrastructure like airports, air defenses, or command and control centers. The sheer scale and audacity of this reported military presence signals a major, enduring security breach for Iran, undermining its claims of sovereign integrity.
And to make matters even more stark, more immediately impactful for Iran, there's the shocking news of high-profile assassinations within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, Iran's elite force.
Yeah, the leadership hits.
Iran officially confirmed the assassination of Ali Shadmani, who was the commander of the Qatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, a critical strategic and operational hub.
A very senior figure.
Very. What makes this even more devastating for Iran is that Shadmani was appointed to that role after his predecessor, Ghulam Ali Rashid, was also assassinated by Israel.
Two commanders of the same crucial unit, back to back.
Back to back. This isn't random. It indicates a systematic, targeted elimination of Iran's top military and intelligence leadership, striking at the very heart of their command structure.
This series of high-level assassinations raises an incredibly important and fundamental question for us.
Yeah.
How can a regime genuinely claim a resounding victory in a conflict when its top military and intelligence leadership is being systematically eliminated, one after another?
Right. And its territory is deeply infiltrated.
Exactly. And its sovereign territory is deeply and demonstrably infiltrated by enemy forces. Regardless of the specific damage to nuclear sites, which remains debated, these assassinations and the reported deep penetration indicate significant systemic damage to Iran's military and intelligence infrastructure, and critically, to its command and control capability.
It has to hurt them badly.
When key leaders are removed, it disrupts chains of command, creates uncertainty, and can severely impact morale and operational effectiveness. It certainly doesn't sound like the actions of an undamaged and truly victorious nation. It sounds like a regime under profound and sustained pressure, facing severe internal vulnerabilities.
So with all this internal turmoil and external pressure mounting on Iran, a crucial question naturally arises. Where were their supposed long-standing allies?
Yeah, good question. China, Russia.
Let's address Iran's turning to China first. The Iranian defense minister's visit to China, the very first high-level official visit after the U.S. strike, was notably highlighted by Bloomberg as dangerous.
Dangerous why?
Suggesting it signaled China's potential entry into the conflict, potentially as a military backer for Iran.
Ah, okay. But did they step up?
Well, what's truly compelling here is precisely why China would not get involved militarily, despite the very strong ties and the significant economic stakes.
Okay, lay it out.
While it's true that Iran supplies a massive 90% of China's oil, and the potential risk of a pro-Western regime taking power in Iran were it to fall would be an immense strategic blow to China's energy security and geopolitical standing.
That's huge leverage for Iran, you'd think.
You would think. But China's overwhelming and primary strategic goal remains the invasion of Taiwan, an objective consistently projected for around 2027.
Ah, Taiwan. That's the big one for them.
That's the prize. Engaging in a direct military conflict in the Middle East would not only divert crucial resources, attention, and military assets away from their paramount objective in the Pacific,
But would also critically violate international law, something China, surprisingly, wants to meticulously avoid in the lead-up to any Taiwan action to maintain a veneer of legitimacy.
So getting bogged down in the Middle East is not part of the plan.
Not at all. While they might offer significant economic support, or potentially provide defensive technologies like radars or transport planes, they are highly unlikely to provide offensive weapons or direct military intervention that would draw them directly into a Middle Eastern conflict. Their long-term strategic objectives simply don't align with such a costly diversion.
Okay, so China's out militarily. What about Russia? Another supposed key ally for Iran, with whom they share deep military and geopolitical ties.
Right, they've worked together a lot recently.
A foreign policy article directly posed the question, why did Russia choose not to intervene? Despite very strong, well-documented ties with Iran and its regional allies, like Hamas and the Houthis, who notably visited Russia in late 2024, Russia remained conspicuously silent and inactive during and after the strike. No discernible military support.
So why did Russia sit this one out? Their reasons are quite clear and fundamentally strategic, reflecting their current geopolitical priorities.
Such as?
Firstly, there's significantly decreased reliance on Iran for military supplies. Unlike earlier in the Ukraine war, when Russia relied heavily on Iranian drones and missiles to replenish its depleted arsenals.
They needed those drones badly then.
They did.
Yeah.
But Russia had now largely ramped up its domestic weapon production and achieved a greater degree of self-sufficiency. They simply don't need Iran as urgently for military hardware.
Okay, reason one. Less need. What else?
Secondly, and overwhelmingly, Russia's absolute priority is, and remains, the conflict in Ukraine. Their focus is singular: to overthrow Ukraine, a goal they recently advanced by liberating the Luhansk province.
Ukraine is everything for them right now.
Everything. Any major Middle East intervention would drain vital human and material resources desperately needed for that primary objective, risking their gains in Eastern Europe.
Makes sense. Third reason.
Thirdly, Russia simply lacks the capacity for a significant, sustained Middle East intervention right now. To truly aid Iran in a meaningful military way, they would need a huge deployment of forces, entire divisions, sophisticated air defense systems, a substantial Air Force contingent, and naval assets.
Stuff they need in Ukraine.
Exactly, which they currently do not have the luxury to spare without severely compromising their efforts in Ukraine. Lastly, Russia maintains strong and valuable relations with key Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia and the UAE.
Right, they talk to everyone.
These are economically crucial relationships, and Russia has absolutely no desire to jeopardize them by overtly supporting Iran in a direct conflict against the U.S. and Israel. So, despite the strong rhetoric and historical ties, Russia's pragmatic strategic calculations firmly kept them on the sidelines.
Highlighting Iran's increasing isolation.
Precisely.
So to everyone listening, What this detailed analysis reveals is that the supposed allies that Iran might traditionally rely on are, in fact, strategically focused elsewhere, preoccupied with their own paramount national interests. This leaves Iran far more isolated, more vulnerable, and with significantly less geopolitical leverage than its public statements or historical alliances might suggest. It's a stark and sobering reality check on their actual standing in the complex global arena.
Absolutely. It truly highlights the intricate, often cold calculus of priorities that dictates international relations, especially in times of crisis.
Oh.
Alliances, it seems, are often conditional on greater strategic gains, and when those gains don't align, even strong ties can fray under pressure.
Which brings us full circle almost to the core irony of this whole situation, the ultimate paradox of victory. Despite the chaos, the conflicting intelligence, and the severe implications for various actors, all three nations, the U.S., Israel, and Iran, are publicly claiming victory.
Everyone's a winner.
Right. Yet, if you look closely at their actions and underlying motivations, none of them actually want to continue or escalate the war. That's a very strange, almost absurd outcome where everyone declares triumph while simultaneously seeking to de-escalate.
It is, isn't it? This paradox compels us to ask a deeply important question. What does victory even truly mean in this context? When the reality on the ground for all parties suggests a very limited engagement, significant damage suffered by at least one side in Iran, clearly in this case.
Leaders assassinated, forces inside.
Exactly, and a clear, almost palpable desire to disengage and de-escalate. These victory claims appear less as reflections of objective reality and more as carefully crafted narratives designed for domestic consumption and international posturing.
Smoke and mirrors.
It's a fragile, almost hollow victory, if it's a victory at all, for any of them, exposing the gap between rhetoric and reality in modern geopolitics.
Precisely. Let's look closer at Iran's true cost and its potential future trajectory. Despite Supreme Leader Khamenei's defiant words about undamaged facilities and a weak strike.
Words we now know were likely political spin.
Right. Iran suffered major, almost irreplaceable blows to its military and intelligence leadership. As we discussed earlier, they lost the intelligence chief, the Air Force chief, and their deputies, all reportedly to systematic assassinations.
That's a huge blow to capability.
It is. This is a heavy, debilitating toll, far beyond what any public statement about a weak strike can mask, severely impacting their operational continuity and strategic planning capabilities.
And this devastating toll leads to a crucial discussion about the potential for significant internal political change within Iran itself.
How so?
Khamenei's hardline, no negotiation, no nuclear concession stance, which he steadfastly and dogmatically maintained for years, ultimately proved ineffective in preventing the very attacks he then claimed were ineffective.
Right. The hard line didn't protect them.
Exactly. This situation, therefore, might inadvertently open a crucial path for Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, who has historically been perceived as more pragmatic and demonstrably more open to negotiations with the West.
So the attack might empower the moderates, ironically.
It's possible. The outcome of this limited but highly impactful conflict could significantly empower the more moderate and pragmatic elements within the Iranian leadership, potentially creating a new dynamic that Khamenei's rigid ideology, perhaps paradoxically, failed to prevent. It could be a turning point for Iranian foreign policy.
Fascinating potential consequence. And finally, let's talk about a real hidden player in bringing this immediate conflict to an end. The nation of Qatar.
The mediators.
Often operating behind the scenes, Qatar reportedly acted as a primary mediator, playing a crucial role in helping the U.S. manage the delicate situation with Iran.
And crucially, supporting Trump in his efforts to de-escalate tensions and secure a commitment from Netanyahu.
Right. It's a subtle but profoundly powerful role they played in diffusing a potentially catastrophic situation.
What's truly fascinating here is how Qatar has shrewdly leveraged this crisis, seizing the opportunity to significantly position itself as the primary peacemaker and indispensable mediator in the volatile Middle East.
They've become the go-to guys.
Pretty much. By facilitating these critical, high-stakes back channels between antagonists, Qatar has substantially enhanced its influence and diplomatic standing with both the United States and Iran. This process might also lead to Iran, after seemingly losing some crucial trust or finding less reliable support from its traditional allies like Russia and China, who remained on the sidelines.
They need new friends, or at least intermediaries.
Right. To increase its reliance on Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC countries, particularly Qatar. It's a long-term strategic gain for Qatar, boosting its regional and international prestige, and perhaps even shifting the balance of power within the GCC itself.
Okay, so after all that, what does all this mean for you, the learner, navigating this incredibly complex geopolitical landscape?
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
It means that in modern geopolitics, official narratives, even those coming directly from seemingly authoritative intelligence agencies, can be deeply intertwined with, and sometimes overtly driven by, specific political agendas and strategic goals. It's a complex, multi-layered game of information, and the truth you receive is often carefully curated and part of that larger game.
Absolutely. The information presented to the public is very often curated, almost sculpted, not just to inform, but to support a specific outcome, to achieve a particular political or strategic objective. This makes critical thinking, the constant questioning of assumptions, and the diligent pursuit of diverse, cross-reference sources absolutely essential for anyone trying to understand the world.
It can't just take the first story you hear.
No way. This raises an important and pressing question for all of us as informed citizens. How can we truly discern the truth when so much information is politicized, weaponized, and deliberately designed to sway public opinion? It's a fundamental challenge we all face in the current information age.
So, as we wrap things up, it's clear this deep dive into the recent fraught events between the U.S., Israel, and Iran has been, well, a whirlwind.
Definitely a whirlwind.
Conflicting reports, ingenious strategic maneuvering, and some truly shocking revelations about the nature of power and information. It's really a microcosm of how modern geopolitical power plays out, not just on the battlefield, but profoundly in the realm of information itself.
Indeed. We've seen firsthand how information can be weaponized, how intelligence can be politicized to serve specific ends, and how behind almost every public statement there are often layers upon layers of hidden agendas and calculated gambits. It's a stark, compelling reminder of the absolute importance of looking beyond the surface, of digging deeper into the nuanced details.
And on that note, here's something to chew on as you go about your day. In an era where victory is claimed by all sides, irrespective of the underlying reality, and the truth seems ever more slippery and negotiable, what is the ultimate long-term cost of a world where facts are so pliable?
That's a heavy question.
And perhaps more importantly, how do we, as informed individuals, protect ourselves from being unwitting pawns in these intricate, high-stakes information wars?
Stay curious. Keep those probing questions coming, and always remember to look beyond the headlines. The truth in this complex world is often found in the fascinating nuances and the compelling contradictions.
Make sure to subscribe to the Deep Research Podcast to get more insights like this. Until next time, keep digging.